InDesign document, a lot of you have got PDFs. And of course in InDesign you can't see the colour profile, you can't check if there's RGB in there. However, what you can do is use that links palette, navigate to your PDF, tell it to open in Adobe Acrobat. Obviously you've got to sign in and everything. And then it'll look like this, and you just say view more. If it's not showing all the tools, pick the tab that says access all tools and this will open. And then you want to look at this, use print production. And you see you have this nice little thing that says convert colours. So in there, what we're looking for, you could say any colour space and that it would get everything, including spot colours. So you can make it do everything, and look, you can go and say if you have spot colours and you definitely knew you wanted to convert to CMYK, but a lot of the time you don't because you chose those spot colours for a reason. But if you've been doing crazy stuff and put all sorts of spot colours in that you didn't mean to have in there, you can also convert those to at this point. So you don't have to go back to your original file that you created. So at this point, all I'm worried about is I could do any colour space, convert them all, but I'm specifically worrying about RGB. In here, it says convert to profile. Now, if you have, and it'll convert to whatever profile of the destination printer. If you don't know, if you don't have a specific colour profile to use, then the US web-coded swap V2 is a very good one. It's used very widely for lots and lots of production. So you could use that. And you can also say, tick this box to embed that profile so you won't lose it. See how many different profiles there are? If you've downloaded the Blurb profile and you're working at home on your own computer, it'll turn up here. Yeah, if you have to add it go into your system folder and add it into your colour profiles. So just depends, you know, you're going to still get an okay result doing it with that profile. It's a very standard profile for most colour printing. So note the difference though between coated, that's your shiny glossy paper. So if you've got satin paper, you might want to use that. If you haven't, sorry, other way around, web code is nothing to do with websites. That just means a big round web of paper. That's all that means. So in big printers, they have what's called a web of paper, big roll of paper. That's what that means. So you might, this is another common one, the photograph one. You need to ask your printer which one of those you should be using. It's a colour profile. They'll send it to you. So you'll get, that's a way to guarantee you close that loop and you get a better colour output. So it's not always possible. Sometimes you're giving the files to, to the client to go and print. So if you're not told anything, just pick between the coated, US web-coded swap V2. Coated means shiny, yeah? Or if you guys are using the uncoated one, so that other paper, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. But yeah, you know the one, it's just not got no surface on it, so use that uncoated one. If it's satin, then use the coated one. So that's really all you need to do, and then you can just run that and say okay. You can see what we've selected, any object, any RGB, convert and use this profile. What does that mean, the profile? Well, it just means here's my RGB, which describes, say, the colour red with a set of numbers, red 4532, and then the colour profile goes, hey, I'm going to translate those numbers into a set of ink, numbers that describe the ink that best matches that. That's what it is. The best way I can explain what a colour profile is, it's like it's a translator that translates those colours. So it's going to shift them. You might see some changes in the document. So if you're not happy with that, then have a good look at it, because then you might want to go back to the original and fiddle with that back in InDesign, fiddle with it back in wherever you created, Illustrator or Photoshop. But this way you don't have to reopen the original files. you can just take that end PDF, and when you're happy with it, you just say OK, and it's going to run through the entire document. It does warn you that the operation cannot be undone, and I'm going to say yes, I want it to do it. It just runs through, so it's converting them all. Yeah, so you guys just need to do that to any of your PDFs. Just go run through this process, and that's just going to help you get a better output, a more controlled output. If you're doing it on your laptop, working at home, then by all means download the actual blurb colour profile if you're using them. If you're using Lulu or some other, or Mixam, I think is another one, whoever they are, there should be a colour profile. You download that, and you'll be able to install that in your system, in your system settings on your laptop. We just can't do it here because TAFE's firewall locks me out from being able to download and install the actual, I can't alter it, I can't download that profile and install it. So, but there's nothing to stop you doing that at home. And like I said, that's the recommended one for Blurb. But don't freak out about it if you're not using that, because that generic one, and from the results we've seen from students who've sent away RGB files, it's actually turned out okay. They're pretty forgiving. You know, it's a pretty good process, and I think they probably do the same thing when they get it. They probably convert using their profile. So don't sweat on it too much if you haven't, you know, checked it. It'll still turn out okay, but as with your Photoshop files, you want to have converted RGB to CMYK before you send anything to print. If you've accidentally got spot colours in there, then you can get rid of those as well. You can look at your ink manager to tell what you've got. I don't have any spot colours in there. This was an RGB presentation, so I wouldn't have expected they'd used any spot colours. If you have used a spot colour, it would show up in the ink manager and tell you. And if you've got 5 or 6 spot colours sitting in there, then you've got a chance to say, you know, convert those spot colours to RGB, to CMYK. So the ink manager is always a good place when you've got a PDF sending to print. It's always a good idea to go and look at that at least and just check. If it's a spot colour that's meant to be there, you also want to check that if the logo has to use the client's brand, you know, their designated brand colour, and it does have to be a particular spot, which we know if it's an orangey logo or bright red or super lime green or something, or hot pink, then we would expect to see at least that Pantone, but we shouldn't see a whole bunch of others. Only the ones you really have to use for your brand would turn up there. All right, that's enough. I've just made a video of that.